Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Vital Signs event. My name is David Brenneman, and I'm the chair of the Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation Board of Directors. I'm very happy to welcome you here to our launch of the 2016 edition of the Waterloo Region's Vital Signs, a priority report on our community vitality. We recognize that many dignitaries have joined us here this morning, but we truly want to thank each and every one of you for being here. You're demonstrating your care and your passion for our community. Welcome to everyone. I look forward to learning along with you on how we can make a difference in our community, and we can do it together. If you'd like to join us in the online conversation today, please join us on Twitter using the hashtag WRVS2016. The KWCF board continues to see Vital Signs as a tool for change and an instrument for improving the life in Waterloo Region. Last year, I described how the KWCF uses the report's findings as part of the environmental scan of our community. This helps guide the Foundation's overall strategy. As our work to impact belonging continues, Vital Signs remains a lens through which we work. Vital Signs truly is the compass that directs us as a board, and over the last year we've heard from many organizations around the community that have begun using the learnings from Vital Signs in their strategic planning. And as someone that raised that issue last year, I want to applaud the organizations for doing that. With this latest report being launched this morning, I continue to encourage all local organizations to use Vital Signs in their work. It can be a very, very powerful tool in any organization's strategic toolbox. At this time, I'd now like to take this opportunity to welcome Rosemary Smith, CEO of the KWCF, help to kick off this event for us this morning. Rosemary.
Thank you, David, and my very personal thanks to each and every one of you for coming out this morning. It's a big morning, there's some exciting news, and I thank you for taking time out of what I know to be very busy schedules to join us. But I would be remiss this morning if I didn't highlight the partners who have supported Waterloo Region's Vital Signs either financially or have been working with our staff over the last 7 months to bring this year's report to life. Without the tireless support of Core Integrated Communications, KPMG, the Waterloo Region's Records Community Partnership Program, we just simply would not be able to produce Vital Signs. Would you join me in saying thanks to them, please? We want you to know that we understand that change does not happen in an instant, and it certainly does not happen alone. Over the last year, we've truly come to recognize how important it is to keep a longer-term focus on the priorities of our community. Adopting a longer Vital Signs cycle has allowed us to get the message out about the most pressing areas of concern, and we're now starting to see some exciting change happening both internally and externally. But we must look to whether that cycle alone is enough. We have to work with other work being done in our community outside the KWCF. We are asking ourselves what the cycle length should be, what makes the most sense given the timing of municipal elections and the collection of data by various other bodies. Over the next year, we will be working with local organizations to determine the best timing for the launch of our next full Vital Signs report. This year, we are proud to release the third priority report following the full report we released in 2013. These priority reports provide us with an opportunity to dig deeper into the issues and to call attention to the areas the data tells us are most in need of attention. With the leadership of our data consultant, Taylor Newberry, stand up and say hi, and our expert review panel. For those of you who are here from the expert review panel, would you stand up and give a wave? We dug deeper into each of the priority areas set out in the full report. The areas are belonging and leadership, arts and culture, getting started, whether it's in life or in Canada, and health and wellness. In 2013, we announced that belonging and leadership was the most critical area in need which faces our community today. Since then, we, along with many local nonprofit organizations, have focused our work through the lens of belonging. We have infused belonging into our strategic grants approach and through all of our leadership programs like Random Act of Kindness Day and Engage KW. But I'm here to tell you that our work together has only just begun. Improving our community's overall sense of belonging is not a goal achieved overnight. It takes the dedication of volunteers, philanthropists, and committed community leaders like each and every one of you here this morning. Now, that's not to say we aren't seeing any growth and change. Over the last year, we've come across some amazing stories that help us understand the impact of our collective work. So, as a segue, I'd like to invite Cameron Dearlove to the podium to share one of those stories. For those of you who may not have had the pleasure of meeting Cameron, opportunity, inclusion, engagement, community, empathy, and earnestness are some of his favorite words. He has worked and studied many places, including our very own Wilfrid Laurier University, and gosh, watch me massacre this, Aarhus University in Denmark. Cameron has been a teacher here in Kitchener and in South Korea, an employment counselor, a job developer, a workplace language coach to newcomers to Canada through the Working Centre. As an institutional entrepreneur, Cameron has been the lead developer of the Waterloo Region Internationally Educated Teachers Pilot Project, the Family Centre Community Hub, and has been involved with local organizations including Extend a Family, Waterloo Region, and the Waterloo Wellington Lynn. Cameron is also the executive director of an organization called Bridges to Belonging. But Bridges to Belonging wasn't always the name that the organization used. But I'm not going to tell that story. Cameron is. Cameron, would you join us?
I think I'll have Rosemary always introduce me. That sounds good. So I'm here today because the Community Foundation folks heard that I was on vacation, and they have that kind of sense of humor, but and didn't mention it was at 8 a.m. No. Thank you. I'd like to begin today by telling you a bit about Rick. Rick is the equipment manager for a local hockey team. To see him do his work is a thing of beauty. With a towel hung over his shoulder and a fanny pack filled with tape and all the tools of the trade, he hauls out the equipment, fills up the water bottles and places them evenly along the bench. He even stacks the pucks into a pyramid ready to be knocked onto the ice for warm-up. Rick is deadly serious about his work. During the game, he stands behind the players along with the coaching staff. When the team scores, he smiles and cheers with the rest of the team. That Rick has a developmental disability has nothing to do with what makes the story special. What makes it special is that he was welcomed onto the team. He's appreciated for his work. The coaches and players interact with him. There are expectations of him, and he is valued for his contributions. He belongs. Shortly after he started as equipment manager, on the drive home, our staff person asked him how he was enjoying his new role. Rick's response, "I'm sleeping better." That's the impact of belonging. "2016 has been a year of transition for our organization. In May, we adopted the name Bridges to Belonging. In June, we launched our community advocacy campaign called We Belong Waterloo Region. So yeah, belonging is kind of a big deal for us, but it wasn't always. Our organization began in 2010, and we were originally called Facile Waterloo Region. So for those of you who remember your French lessons, facile means easy, and we went with that name because our job was to make life easy. And that sounds great, but the truth is that we don't make life easy. A life of full inclusion in the community, for anyone, but especially for someone who faces significant barriers, is complex and difficult and rarely easy. But it's also rich and rewarding. Rick's life isn't easy, but it sure is rewarding. So we realized that it was time for a new name that spoke not just to what we do, but the change we seek for Waterloo Region. Our organization is steeped deeply in our values, but in none of our organizational philosophy did the word belonging come up. Instead, we used the word inclusion. And rightly so. So many parents, self-advocates, and allies fought for years for legal and institutional inclusion for people with disabilities, whether it was in schools, in work, in recreational programs. Everywhere there was a fight for inclusion. In Ontario, we were closing the institutions, but the institutional mindset continued. But in the last few years, the language has started to change as the challenges started to change. We started to talk less about inclusion and talk more about belonging. We started to see that inclusion was a step along a continuum and that we had a little further to go. Remember when people used to use the word tolerance in the context of diversity as though it were a virtue? It sounded good at the time, but today, wow, you tolerate my existence? That's so generous of you to tolerate me. Then we moved towards acceptance. And acceptance sounds nicer, but it still indicates there's something wrong with me that requires your acceptance. So acceptance just isn't good enough. Then it was inclusion, and inclusion was good, and I don't want to give the indication that we're done fighting for inclusion. There's a lot more inclusive and deinstitutionalized thinking required. But through our work, we started to see that something was missing with inclusion. Inclusion is an invitation. You include someone in a place, an activity, in a group, but with inclusion, it's still up to you. It's still up to you to invite me. And at no point in the continuum from tolerance to acceptance to inclusion did anyone stop to ask, how do you feel? Is this where you want to be? Are you feeling respected, encouraged, and welcomed? That's where belonging became the next step. It's no longer just about your actions of inclusion. It's about how we perceive our experience of the world. Rick is included on the team. They accept him as equipment manager, but it took more than being included for Rick to feel a sense of belonging. His gifts, his work, and his talents were appreciated. People interact with him, ask him how he's doing, and care to hear the answer. He's part of the team. Win or lose, they work together. The Community Foundation talks about belonging building blocks, authentic interactions, feeling welcome, and shared experiences. Sounds to me like Rick has found the recipe. I think so, right, Rick? Awesome. So that was the journey that brought us to our new name, Bridges to Belonging. It's what we do, but it's also the change we seek for our community. And with a new name and updated vision statement, we see Waterloo Region as a community where everyone belongs, where we value meaningful relationships, honor choices and dreams, and celebrate the uniqueness of each person. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? We think so. I've heard people say that belonging is the current buzzword, and it is. And that it's too abstract, and it can be. But it's also a powerful idea with real-world implications for individuals and for our community. So this morning, I'll leave you with this. Meaningful relationships, honoring choices and dreams, celebrating the uniqueness of each person, authentic interactions, feeling welcome, and shared experiences. We know the recipe. What will you do for the other Ricks out there? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Cameron. Very powerful. Before I share with you the details of our local report, I wanted to take just a moment to talk about Community Foundations of Canada and the national report which was launched last Tuesday. As some of you may know, the Kitchener and Waterloo Community Foundation is part of a movement of 191 community foundations across Canada, all networked through our national organization, Community Foundations of Canada, that we call CFC. So CFC launched their nationally focused vital signs report each year, and last year we learned that they were starting a similar multi-yeared approach to their vital signs work. So they launched a report for 2015 to 17 focused on the area of belonging. On October the 4th, their latest report, Belonging, Exploring Connection to Community, a national vital signs report that is an ongoing exploration and focus on belonging in Canada was released. CFC defines belonging simply as being part of a collective we. It's really a two-way street. It's about communities sending signals of acceptance and inclusion, and about individuals cultivating their own connection to community. A sense of belonging is important to build safer, vibrant communities, and it brings purpose to those communities. As CFC continued their exploration this year, they used the lens of social participation to better understand how we as individuals cultivate our connection to community. As they discovered in pulling together the report, belonging and social participation influence one another. The more we get involved in the community, the more we feel like we belong. The stronger our sense of belonging, the more we're willing to contribute to our community, because we feel responsible for its well-being. Scientists and statisticians call that a positive correlation. CFC calls it the key to community vitality. Taking in the sounds of a music festival, attending a religious service, or helping a neighbor are all examples of social participation. When you add it all up, you soon realize that there are many pathways to participation and to belonging. In this report, CFC has highlighted 5 such pathways: faith, sport, activism, online, how new technologies shape how Canadians communicate, and the arts. So let's look at faith. People who consider their religion or faith to be very important are 54% more likely to have a strong sense of belonging to Canada. While participation in organized religion is in decline, alternative forms of collective spiritual expression are on the rise. Sport. 87% of new citizens say watching their children play sports makes them feel more connected to this community. While we experience the benefits of sport most immediately as individuals, it also brings a major role in strengthening communities by bringing people together, building social capital, and fostering a greater inclusion of excluded groups, exactly what Cameron described to us this morning. Why? Because the sport is inherently social. It brings people together both on the field and in the stands. Activism. People involved in activism rate higher on several indicators of well-being. It's more than just advocating for change, it's also about building stronger connections to community through people and through causes. Online. New technologies shape how Canadians are communicating. There's no doubt about that. But people who are active on social media are also more likely to visit with their friends in person and to volunteer. In addition, internet users are more likely to volunteer and contribute more volunteer hours than non-users. Also, 44% of Canadians involved in community groups use the internet as part of their involvement. The arts. Canadians who attended an arts or cultural performance in the last year were 34% more likely to do a favor for a neighbor. Imagine that, 34% more likely. Our tendency to volunteer increases as the frequency of our participation in cultural activities increase. So, for more information about the National Vital Signs Report, I really would invite you to visit vitalsignscanada.ca. All the data you'd ever want to read is available to you. Now, I'm excited to share with you now some details from our local priority report. I should note first, however, that for those of you eager for the new raw data, we will, as always, have it available to you on our website at www.wrvitalsigns.ca. All of the data will be made available by noon today, I promise, or at least I'm told. Copies of the report will be handed out to you as you leave this morning with information on each of the 4 priority areas. So, let's get started. Our sense of belonging drives behaviors such as donating and volunteering. Few residents are stepping up to donate. And only a small portion of Waterloo Region's visible minority groups are in leadership roles. Those with a weak sense of belonging are more likely to think the region is not in touch with their needs. And although residents think the region is a safe place, over recent years, levels of trust have declined. Most striking is that 1 in 4, it's actually a little less than 1 in 4, Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge tax filers donate to a charity. 1 in 4. Most residents think that promoting arts, culture, and heritage should be a priority. It is understood that development of the arts and culture sector is a key strategy to grow the local economy and to attract and retain talented people and their families. However, artists earn less than the general labor force. People with a poor quality of life have a less favorable perception of the status of arts and culture in Waterloo Region. What stood out most to us under the arts and culture sector was the difference in income levels when comparing the general labor force, cultural workers, and artists. While the general labor force makes $47,900 average income, cultural workers and artists reported $42,600 and $31,000 for their annual average income, a difference of 11% and 35% for each group respectively. The experience of those in Waterloo Region transitioning to new life phases isn't always an easy one. Immigrants take longer to earn as much as Canadian-born residents. Our young people are experiencing challenges graduating high school on time and transitioning out of their parents' homes. I've heard stories of that. In addition, new parents are faced with the challenge of accessing licensed childcare. From getting started, we wanted to highlight one particular piece of data we found. A typical immigrant does not achieve income comparable to people born in Canada until approximately 20 years after moving here. 20 years. While most residents believe they are in good or excellent health, many people report having chronic health conditions. In addition, some people are not able to access the resources they need to improve their health and are unable to live their lives fully due to those health challenges. Most revealing under this section is that 1/3 of residents experienced limitations in participating in activities. Specifically, I'm having trouble with S words today, specifically due to physical or mental condition or health problem expected to last more than 6 months or longer. Now, the information I shared with you this morning will no doubt cause you to stop and think about the challenges facing our community. Before I move on to what I deem to be a very special part of our presentation this morning, I want to take a moment one more time to thank the members of our expert review panel who assisted us with the 2016 report. Their guidance and feedback proved just invaluable in collecting and interpreting the data. So heartiest thanks to each and every one of you for your time and your contributions to that report. You know how they say if you live long enough, something old is new again? Well, something old and very special is new again. I'm really excited to have David McConaughey here with us this morning. David is the publisher of a magazine called Alternatives Journal, or AJ for short. David will give you some background to let you know deep roots in this community. But over the last few years, AJ has shifted to taking a more fluid approach to the themes of their quarterly magazine. We were approached by David and his team to partner on a very special edition of AJ, one focused on belonging. Well, last few months of hard work have resulted in an exciting and reflective magazine that features many local stories of belonging, but I'll let David tell you about it. David, would you please come to the podium and tell your story?
Just a little taller than Rosemary. I know. Good morning, everybody. Everybody feeling wonderful today? It's a beautiful day out. We've got a brief return of summer today, but we were reminded yesterday that the seasons are coming and the seasons are turning, just like everything in life. We are so very pleased and so very proud to be able to join with you today, to be able to partner with our friends in our community to share a story that is unique and very compelling. So let me tell you, actually let me back up and just share with you how this journey really truly began. It began with Rosemary sharing with us an analogy. You know, we're an environmental media organization. They are a charitable foundation that empowers positive change. We're trying to figure out how this all worked, and Rosemary defined belonging the following way. She said, you walk outside your front door and you see garbage on your front lawn. Do you stop to pick it up? Hands up. Okay. You're walking down your street. You see garbage sitting on your neighbor's lawn. Do you stop and pick it up? Maybe a little less. You're walking downtown. You see garbage on the street. Do you stop and pick it up? You notice my hand going down. Well, whether that's garbage on the street, people who need help, opportunities that need to be pursued, what connects those is your sense of belonging. Our house belongs to us, our neighbors belong to us, but does our community belong to us? And as we've seen today, and I just have to, I have to share with you how wonderful it is. Normally you would come to these kinds of events and the foundation would tell you the best of. We were reminded today that although we've done incredible things in terms of working towards belonging in this community, we have some things that we can improve upon. And that gives us hope and energy to do it again in the future. So let me tell you just briefly a little bit about Alternatives Journal. Alternatives Journal was founded in 1971 as an environmental media organization. It was a magazine, it was an academic transfer journal. The purpose, we were founded fundamentally to help understand the concept of environment when, quite frankly, the environment was brand new. We were founded in 1971 at the same time that Environment Canada was founded. We are a working and registered Canadian charity and have been since our foundation, and our focus is to build the national media voice for Canada's environmental community, and that's the hook. A movement is a community. But how does a movement-based community learn how to become better at the things like belonging? You find a good partner like the Community Foundation and the Kitchener and Waterloo Community Foundation, and you work with them to be able to share their stories. Our core missions are fundamentally creating opportunities for environmental journalists. And I do this in the environmental movement whenever I have conversations. Hands up, anybody who knows an environmental media celebrity. Hands down if his name is David Suzuki. This is kind of important, our environment, right? You can't breathe, you can't drink, you can't grow food. So we need more people who can help us understand these complex issues. We also provide communication capacity for Canadians' environmental community. We tell stories about great organizations like, I don't know, Sustainable Waterloo Region, another wonderful organization. And we try to connect students with employment and opportunities. Did you know today, now, you know, oh God, the environment, oh, doom and gloom. Anybody know that there is 200,000 post-secondary environment students in this country just waiting to solve the problems, just waiting to be unleashed? So how do we welcome them? How do we bring them into our community? How do we give them we can learn from the Kitchener and Waterloo Community Foundation and how they build belonging. So that's how we started this journey. Are we fortunate to be joined by Pamela Rojas today? Darn. Rosemary said this, and I think Pamela is a true gift to our community. And when you read your issue, A true gift to this community. And when you read the issue, and I hear that you might be getting a copy of the issue, you'll notice that the art of Pamela Rojas is sprinkled throughout the issue. You also may not know, but Ms. Rojas has started an organization called the Pomegranate Collective to bring more community-built, community-conceived, and community-delivered art to our region. So that's an incredible achievement, and we're so pleased. So why did this environmental media organization do an issue on belonging? Well, for environmentalists, we're concerned with the people and the place that makes up Canada and the world. We see the intersections in the Syrian refugee crisis, and some of you may know that many of the refugees, in fact, started their journey because they were climate refugees as the water dried up and they had to move into cities, and then that became one of the problems that continued through the Civil War. For environmentalists, there's a need to learn how to serve an evolving and changing community needs, and we're so very pleased. You know, and what is belonging for communities, and how does it do that? Well, belonging welcomes newcomers. And the environmental community in Canada probably represents no more than 10% of our population. And we need to get to 100% if this country is going to lead this planet in the future in an economy and an environmental balance to drive forward. Belonging identifies new and changing needs. As we've seen, our communities are changing. So is the environmental movement. We're welcoming more young people. We're welcoming more seniors. We're welcoming more business people. And we need all of those people to work together, much like a community, to build the strength. Fundamentally, when we care about our place, as Rosemary talked, we care about our place, we take better care of it. And when we talk about our local community, that means picking up the trash on our lawn. When it talks about our national community or an environmental community, it talks about being able to make some meaningful decisions about how you're going to align yourself to be able to take advantage of the cool new electric vehicles that are going to be coming online soon. How do we build belonging? We work at it. So there you go. You see over my shoulder the cover of Belonging. And I think the lesson that we brought to our audience is stated right there on the cover. You'll have to excuse me, I'm at that age now. Waterloo Region's work to build a stronger sense of community holds vital lessons for Canadian environmentalists. That's all you really need to know. This is a case study in how to build belonging, and we're building it built upon the back of a community that we know very well. You know, we've been in Waterloo Region since 1985. We've produced more than 100 issues in this community. And some of you might know us from some of the launch events that we did. In 2011, we launched a music issue, and we celebrated that by creating the Grand Porch Party, which continues to this day. 2014, to celebrate our night issue, we launched Night Shift, which continues to this day. So I'm very excited that this collaboration in this community to share the best of stories and the case studies will have the similar and long-lasting impacts. So our 75,000 print edition readers include business, leaders of business, industry, and government. I want you to know who's going to be reading your stories. These are the heads of leading eco nonprofits, along with post-secondary environment students across campuses from coast to coast to coast. Alternatives Journal is read by the Prime Minister. I know that for a fact. He's an environment grad. And by all the MPs across our country. And our publication is on newsstands from coast to coast to coast. So here, what I just wanted to reiterate to you is the stories of achievement, struggle, and success at building belonging in the Waterloo region will be shared nationally and internationally and will serve as an inspiration. Because there is something special in this community. There's something magical. You'll also see the cover art, wonderful art developed by Louise Jessup. Be able to shine a spotlight, and where's Bethan? Bethan? I'm wearing my Belonging green shirt today, so if you've ever worked with Bethan, you know that you have to listen to Bethan. The issue was built in many ways also around the work and the collaboration between the Community Foundation, the House of Friendship, and the University of Waterloo as pertains to bringing the Right Honourable Adrienne Clarkson, the 26th Governor General of this country, to the region to talk about belonging. As you may know, that she developed in conjunction with Massey Lectures a book series about belonging. And I think it's important. Society isn't built upon people liking each other. It is built around the fact that everybody is a human being and deserves the same treatment and respect that you do. That sounds like what Cameron was saying. It sounds like what Rosemary was saying. It sounds like a lot of the stories that I hear in this community. Now let me just share with you some of the contributors and some of the stories that we are telling. We're talking about the House of Friendship and the wonderful work that they do, and inviting folks to walk with them. The YMCA of Cambridge, Kitchener, and Waterloo. I had the joy and the pleasure of visiting that location and meeting some of the team members and some of the participants, and it was an incredibly transformative experience for me. The Waterloo Wellington Local Health Integration Network, Grand River Hospital, the Waterloo Region Police Services and the great work that they're doing, the Immigration Partnership, the Working Center, Sustainable Waterloo Region. All these stories are being shared with our national readership because there's important lessons, not because everybody's got it all figured out, but because they've got it figured out that they need to continue to get it figured out. That's probably the first step. And the work is taking place active and every day. And there's more stories in the issue. Now, here's the thing that I want to share with you. We included this. Very simple. You know, when you work with academics, you have a case study and then you have to take the lessons afterwards. So here's the top 10 tips that we took, our team took away, about how Waterloo Region's work in building belonging can be replicated by other movements, other communities around this country. Number one, do the hard work every day. You've heard about that. You don't have to like everyone to respect them and help them. Make room for new voices and new faces and new contributors. Be open-minded and open-hearted. And that one, I think, this community takes very strongly. Collaborate with unlikely partners. Did you know that in this community you have healthcare agencies working with police services to be proactive and intervene in advance to help those people? Unlikely partnerships. Madame Clarkson's favorite, everyone is an ice cube, we all melt into each other. That's an important thing to remember. We shape each other every day. We reshape. We're like tumbled rocks, and we tumble off each other, hopefully taking away the hard edges. The power of listening, you've heard that, and it runs through what Cameron said, through the House of Friendship, through a lot of the work that's done in this region. Check your ego at the door, or, well, I'll hold off on that. Embrace technology, as you've heard. Technology has the power to be able to connect and empower people to build a sense of belonging and build new tools. And then finally, you hear it a lot, there really is something special in the water in Waterloo Region. As I said, we've been here since 1985 and we see it every day. But I want to demonstrate it just by pointing out something. We have a feature in the issue about Syrian newcomers and the work that is done across this region by a number of groups and organizations to build a sense of belonging, specifically to help Syrian newcomers. So I tell you, there's something special in the water. Waterloo Region punched about 3 times its weight in welcoming refugees. The region of Waterloo has approximately 1.44% of Canada's population, yet Waterloo Region settled 3.72% of the total number of Syrian refugees. Now I did the math, well actually the calculator did the math. That meant that the region of Waterloo settles refugees 258% higher than the national average. That is truly phenomenal. It is quite a testament to the work of everybody in this room, out on those streets, in the meetings, on welcoming people, tipping our hats when we see them on the street. That's how you build a community. And yet, as Rosemary told us, we know we can do better. And we look forward to Alternatives Journal being able to watch and share these incredible stories as the work of building belonging in this region continues. And I promise you, as the environmental community in Canada learns these lessons, we'll share them back with you. Rosemary, thank you very much for inviting us here today.
I'd say that's a wow. I also want to draw your attention to the artwork at the back of the room. That was collected and created the evening that Madame Clarkson spoke. And my favorite quote of hers, and there were many, she described us with some of our challenges that we've outlined in Vital Signs. She commented on how brilliant, talented, entrepreneurial, and creative this community is. And she said, get out there and just fix it. Just fix it, folks, because we can do it. I'd like to take this opportunity before I wrap up to open the floor to questions. So could I ask both Davids and Cameron to join me on the stage, please, in case any of you have questions. I'll ask also, if I could, Andrew Taylor of Taylor Newberry Consulting to be on hand to answer any of the data things that I don't want to touch. And we do believe that questions can lead to better ideas, to better understanding. So no question is too small. Don't be shy. Anybody got one? Yes. Allison.
Cameron, I love the words. Oh, sorry. Great. Never give me a microphone. I actually love the words and the simplicity of making us shift our thinking, and just congratulations on the name change, because I think it's just so reflective of what we need to think about. And I also love the story and the power of the individual stories. So could you just talk a little bit more about how focusing on individual assets or gifts can make a difference, and maybe some of the things that you're doing? Like, I love Rick's story, but just as an organization, how has that shifted your organization?
Thank you. The focus on gifts is kind of the core of what we do. So our work looks a little bit different for each person that we serve. So we help people to build the lives that they want in the community, whatever that looks like. And we start with what someone's gifts are. That may sound like a fluffy thing to think about, what gifts we have, but it's very real as well. We focus a lot and we talk a lot about full citizenship for people with developmental disabilities, and part of the reason for that is that historically people with developmental disabilities kind of were denied a lot of the rights that many of us as citizens have. We've started to focus not just on the rights that people have, but the responsibilities that you have as a citizen as well. So when we talk about full citizenship, it's not just about the rights, but we all have responsibilities to our community as well. So if we focus on the gifts that people have and find the right spot for them in the community where they can share those gifts, that's where it's kind of the win-win for everybody, right? It enriches the lives of the people that we're serving, but it enriches the community as well. So, Rick is really detail-oriented. He knows his job, and he's also really fun to be around. So, perfect environment for him in this hockey team because, he makes sure that everything is taken care of for the players, but also he's a great guy to be around as well. So he's a joy for the team. He's part of the team. He fits with the team. So if we find what his gifts are and then help lead him to the right place that he can share those, then he benefits, but the community benefits overall.
Mrs. Redmond, did I see your hand just go up? I did. Okay.
A lot of you can't see, but Rick is beaming back here. It's pretty neat to see. I think my question's for David the first, but it might also be for Rosemary. This is really important work, and at Habitat for Humanity, we definitely do look at the kind of evidence-based decision-making that we can make with the information that we get from vital signs. So I will go on your website at noon, Rosemary. But it also strikes me that this is really a big issue, and I think that the Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation has a lot of assets that small and medium-sized agencies like Habitat could leverage. So I'm just wondering, as you look to the future, David, as a board, do you see different relationships besides just providing this kind of information to organizations like Habitat for Humanity?
That's a great question. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, definitely. Your question reminds me that I think it was a few years ago in this actual building where we were talking about belonging, and someone in the audience said, what are we going to do about belonging? And I believe the way I answered that was it's not just about what the foundation can do. It's about having the conversations across the community. The only way that we're going to make a difference on some of the really big issues is to collaborate. So whether it's Habitat Humanity, United Way, Sustainable Waterloo Region, any of the organizations out there, the only way we're going to truly make a difference on the important and tough community issues is by understanding the importance of collective community impact. And I didn't come up with that phrase. I've talked over the years with a lot of great community leaders out here in this audience today about how there's tough issues out there, there's important issues, and we've got a lot of small organizations all trying to make a difference, but we've only got so many staff, so many resources. How do we come together and make a difference? And I'll tell you, this past year when Rosemary and myself and our Vice Chair Deb Curry were in Washington, listening to Richard Branson of Virgin Records, Virgin Airplanes fame, talk about philanthropy. He talked about collective community impact, and he said, if we're ever going to solve the true issues facing communities or even the world, it's actually by not just the not-for-profit sector coming together and collaborating, but it's actually by the not-for-profit working with the government, working with the private sector. So that's the message I think I want to leave today is we're happy to help facilitate and lead conversations about collective community impact. And that's simply put about pooling our resources together and making a difference on the true community issues out there.
Karen, in support of David's comment, but maybe from an operating perspective at the organization, we don't do the doing, right? That's not our job. We till the soil, we get rid of the weeds, we chop up the stones, we get rid of them, and we try to enable those who do the doing. And we do that by building, investing, and leading. We don't just build dollars and cents, but it's about building those relationships and knowledge of community and leveraging that through our grant making. So when we support an organization, we don't want to just write a check. We know people who can help. We know the organizations that can get things done. And together we think that takes us to the leadership that truly makes the difference. But if you look at it, everybody has to play their part. No one owns it. No one can do it. All of us have to be part of it. Okay? I have a question up front.
Is that the one?
Well, I had one over here. We'll go over there. It doesn't matter.
Is it random?
Do it while you're there.
This question is for David from AJ. As a huge sustainability advocate, I want to commend you as the leader of an environmentally focused publication for not only seeing the relevance of a very socially oriented issue in looking at the environment, but also making the linkage so closely. My question is, through this journey that you described of creating an entire issue dedicated to belonging, what was maybe the most unexpected or surprising thing that you took away or learned with the environmental focus and community that you serve in mind?
publishing is like any other workplace. You learn things as you go through a process. A couple of things that really struck us is as we got more excited as we worked on this issue. And that isn't always the case. But we got more excited because we were realizing that we were peeling back an onion that really needs to be peeled. As I talked, there's the Canadians who would self-identify as environmentalists and take meaningful action are still in the very small minority. So we need to figure out, how do we build a bigger tent? How do we reach out of the tent and welcome people in? So my personal experience, I wrote a piece about the YMCA of Cambridge, Kitchener, and Waterloo region. And if you haven't been there and you haven't seen how it's a community, it's a family. And I think that was one of the powerful examples that I was able to take away is you build family, and family's the core of community. And I think that as we worked on this issue, we got really excited about it. We were fortunate to have Kathy Storing as our local guest editor, and she understands it. But being able to peel that onion back a little bit more and realizing that there were all sorts of other connections and interconnections. And I share this with you, probably the most impactful environmental organization today that people are paying attention to grew out of this region. There's an organization called CoLab that developed out of Sustainable Waterloo. The rest of the country is coming here to understand how you connect. You mean there's business people who care about the environment? Maybe it's because, we've got a farming base here. But I think there is something special in the water. That's one of the things that we learned. The ethos of barn raising. And it is a special and unique piece. And, we're very, even to the point that we had some challenges in terms of the timing moved up, and we were able to, call on our friends at Cobra in this community, and they were able to roll up their sleeves and work magic, and you'll see that soon. So I think those are the key two lessons that we took away, is that we got more and more excited as we developed the issue because there was so much to be able to share.
Chelsea, can you go back to that lovely lady who had a question? We certainly want to include her, and we want her to feel like she belongs.
Thank you. So in this conversation about belonging, we've talked about a lot of different community groups, a lot of different parts of the community, and one that's been notably absent for me is the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender communities. So I guess the question is, in terms of the vital signs study and those results, was the data disaggregated by sexual orientation and by gender identity? And what were the findings? If you can speak to the findings, what were those in terms of that community?
Stand by. I would like to say that we are very aware of the issues, and yes, in 2014 in particular, we spent considerable time speaking about how lesbian, gay, self-identified, other identified individuals have a much tougher challenge to feel like they belong to this community. But we also included in there single-parent families have the same sort of thing. So we don't want anyone to feel that they have a badge of exclusion. We want everyone to understand that every one of us, including, all right, our gay community, can feel like we don't fit, and it's important that we collectively work. I don't know who said it this morning, but I heard someone say, it's tremendously important, right, that we welcome everyone and we recognize that everyone, even the people we think who fit and don't ever question that they fit, have moments when they don't feel like they belong. And it's important that we include all. So I would encourage you, if you can't pick it off of our website, we'll get you hard copies, give us a call. But Beth is standing right behind you with them. Our 2013 report and our priority reports since then have absolutely focused on the issues. So thank you for the question. Thank our wise people, please. Much wiser than I. Thank you all. Our push to improve this community's sense of belonging is so that our citizens will feel a sense of accountability for this place, to help make it the best place it can be to live, to work, to play, and to raise a family. Whether that's by contributing their time, their talent, or their treasure, in a big, really big, or in a small way, we want everyone to feel not only responsible to act, but when they do act, they can and do make a difference. We believe that everyone has the power to change, to be change makers. And here are just a few of the things that you can do to make a lasting difference in your community. Consider hiring or engaging a youth or a newcomer in your day-to-day work or volunteer activities. Buy local art. If you think that a friend or a family member is struggling with anxiety or depression, be there to listen. Make conversations about what they're going through easy and open. Get informed about resources that can help them and guide them to connect with supports. Take the time to get to know your neighbors, old and new. These are all things that any one of us can do. And they're all things that can make a significant difference in our neighborhoods and in our communities. And finally, before we close this morning, I'd like a show of hands. Who's on Twitter in this room? Yeehaw! I have a special opportunity for those of you with your hands in the air, or who had your hands in the air. Starting this Friday and continuing over the next 8 weeks, we'll be hosting a series of Twitter chats. Each chat will focus on a different vital signs priority area. We are looking for people who are experts in their field, people who are passionate about each field, and people who just want to be part of the conversation. Details are up on the screen and will be shared today via our social media, so follow us at the KWCF. I want to thank you to everyone for coming this morning. Staff will have copies of the reports, the Vital Signs Priority Report, and an AJ's Journal for each and every one of you as you leave. I have a chance now where I want to thank the best staff in this community. They make all of us look good. They do the tough work. So would you please extend a thank you to each and every one of them? So, an encouragement to watch your emails for a link to a very short feedback questionnaire. We really want to know how today impacted you. Did it not? What would have been more helpful? We appreciate your input, so take a moment, please, to complete the survey. And with that, I will leave you again with one question. I always do this. Will you dare to belong? Thank you.